The views expressed on the Final Straw Radio do not necessarily reflect those of Asheville FM, Friends of Community Radio, or any of the affiliate radio stations airing the show. Airing first on Asheville FM, WSFM-LP at 103.3 FM in Asheville, North Carolina. This is The Final Straw, and I'm William Goodenough. The show will later be archived at thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org, and you can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions at thefinalstrawradio@riseup.net. Also, if you're interested in rebroadcasting any episode or segment of the show, you're free to do so. Just send us an email if you end up using any content. If you care to, you can send us letters at our new address, which is The Final Straw Radio, P.O. Box 6004, Asheville, North Carolina 28816. The show is brought to you by Firestorm Books and Coffee. Located at 610 Haywood Road, Firestorm Books and Coffee is a worker-owned cooperative in Asheville specializing in offbeat, underground, and independent literature. You can find a sample of Firestorm's catalog of books and zines, plus a full calendar of events at their website, firestorm.coop.
This week on The Final Straw, we're featuring two main events, both themed around the prison strike ongoing across Turtle Island until at least September 9th. First, an interview we conducted with Kevin Rashid Johnson. Rashid is a co-founder of the new Afrikan Black Panther Party and is a Minister of Defense from within the prison chapter. He is the author of two books available from Kersplebedeb, Defying the Tomb and Panther Vision, both collections of Rashid's art and essays on capitalism, racism, imperialism, and his view of a road towards liberation. Rashid is a Maoist and presents some interesting arguments in his writings. In this interview, Rashid talks briefly about his own case, his politicization behind bars, organizing the NABPP-PC, its split from the new Black Panther Party, cross-racial class organizing, the prison strike, and more. We hope to be able to bring you more of Rashid's voice in the future. To check out his writing and his quite literally iconic art, check out Rashid Mod. That's RASHIDMOD.com. At the moment, you can write to Rashid at the following address: Kevin Johnson, number 1007485, Sussex 1 State Prison, 24414, Muscle White Drive, Waverly, Virginia 23891. Next, we'll hear an audio postcard from some friends put together, interspersing words of encouragement and audio from a noise demonstration outside of Hyde Prison in eastern North Carolina on August 20th. Prisoners at Hyde CI met the outside supporters in the yard, and from across lines of razor wire, they unfurled 3 banners with simple statements: parole, better food, and in solidarity. To read an article about the noise demo, see some pictures, and hear about North Carolina's specific demands, check out the article Community Shows Support as NC Prisoners Rally with Banners on It's Going Down, and make some noise. The August 21st to September 9th prison strike is in full bloom, with participation around the U.S. among immigrant detainees, folks in county, state, and federal facilities, as well as prisoners in Halifax, Nova Scotia, putting on a solidarity statement. Rather than list out all these inside and outside actions, again, we'll point you all to prisonstrike.com, where you'll find links to IWalk, IGD, Jailhouse Lawyers Speak, Sawari Me, and other resources and clearinghouses, where the press releases, images, posters, interviews, updates, and call-outs are being collected. Tools for you to use to amplify and spread the prison strike. Also, if you're looking for things to listen to, you can check out recent and upcoming episodes of the IGD Cast, Kite Line, Rust Belt Abolition Radio, the newly added From Embers, and recently restarted Crime Think Hotwire, all members of the Channel Zero network of anarchist podcasts. And here's a jingle from a member of the CZN.
Anarchism, a social philosophy which aims at the emancipation, economic, social, political, and spiritual of the human race.
Anarchism is not bombs, disorder, or chaos. It is not robbery or murder. It is not a war of each against all.
Anarchism is the very opposite of all that. Find out for yourself. Tune into Subversion 1312.
Live Tuesdays 9 to 10 p.m.
on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM or streaming 4ZZZ.org.au.
Podcasts and related content available at subversion1312.org
and channelzeronetwork.com.
Conclusion?
We stand for anarchy, anti-capitalism, anti-racism, anti-authoritarianism, internationalism,
Autonomy, direct democracy, ecology, self-organization, solidarity, anti-fascism, anti-neoliberalism,
anti-nationalism, atheism, equality, and freedom.
Could you please introduce yourself for the listening audience?
All right, this is Kevin Rashid Johnson. I am a prisoner incarcerated in Virginia at the Sussex One State Prison.
How has the prison tried to silence your organizing and writing over the years, and is this a consequence of the prison strike or other efforts?
And I think I've gone through the entire range of reprisals. I've been subjected to physical attacks. I've been denied meals. I've been attempted to be subjected to dehydration. I've been subjected to destruction of property. Most recently, I was transferred out of state, sent first to Oregon, then transferred from Oregon as a result of writing and exposing abuses in that prison system to Texas. The same process resulted. I was transferred from Texas to Florida. Florida just got rid of me in June and sent me back to Virginia. I was then transferred, when I returned to Virginia, to Red Onion State Prison, and was removed from Red Onion State Prison, transferred on the 12th of July, and sent here to Sussex One State Prison, and am now being housed on death row, although I have no death sentence, and that being with the obvious purpose of isolating me from other prisoners, as there are only 3 prisons left on Virginia's death row, and they're spread out in a 44-cell pod, which I'm housed in, separated from me, and all of them have been instructed not to talk to me. So the major effort has been to isolate me and to remove me from areas and places where they feel I would be able to talk to prisoners, to gain information about abusive conditions, and to, I guess, influence prisons to challenge abuses and to stand up to conditions that are pretty inhumane and abusive. As far as response to the prison work strike, I have not, as of yet, seen any reprisals or any responses that I could call reprisals, and I think they expect that there would be exposure of anything that they did, which may be the only deterrent at this point for any type of retaliation. But I've been involved in a commissary strike, not spending any money as my contribution to the strike. Since I'm confined in solitary and don't have the ability to work, I have never participated in prison work anywhere. I have refused throughout my incarceration because I have recognized it as slave labor, and I've refused to allow them to exploit me in that fashion.
For listeners in the wider public, can you talk about the purpose of prisons under white supremacist capitalism in the U.S. and why it's in all of our interest to not only struggle against these institutions but to support prisoners' organizing efforts?
Well, from the outset, I think it's rather obvious that there is a racial component to who is targeted with mass imprisonment in America. From the new African, that is, black prisoner, black social population being 12 to 13% in mainstream society, but being some 50% of the prison population nationwide, and in Virginia, where I'm incarcerated, there being something like 13% of the state population, but 58% of the prison population. So race clearly is a determinative factor in who is targeted with imprisonment and who receives stiff sentences, and the extent of incarceration and where they're housed. In that context, within the prison system is usually at the low security, low-level institutions where predominantly white prisoners are housed. At the most extreme and harsh prisons in each prison systems I've been to and that I know of, this is where the predominantly black and brown prisons are housed at. Within the prison structure, prisons tend to polarize into racial groups, based on their shared cultural and social experiences. and guards and administrations are typically inclined to try to manipulate prisoners against each other along racial grounds, racial lines, and the guards, in my experience, especially where I just came from, Florida, are particularly oriented to acting out racist policies and politics. In fact, where I was confined to the institution, I was confined to the Reception and Medical Center in Florida and the Florida State prisons. Those institutions have been exposed as employing card-carrying Ku Klux Klansmen. In fact, 3 guards who were exposed as having plotted to kill an ex-prisoner who was black at the Reception and Medical Center and revealed their plans to an FBI informant were recently prosecuted, and it came out during the prosecution that all 3 of them were card-carrying Klansmen and that they worked at the institution. And not long ago, one of the legislators on the Florida Congress had done a tour of the Reception and Medical Center. She, being a black woman, she pretty much expressed in the media that she feared for her life. The attitude of the white guards there was just openly racist. She acknowledged that she knew that the Klan played a prominent role in the staff and the administration of that institution and in that region, which is the same area that Florida State Prison is located. And she expressed her knowledge of a culture at that institution of guards kicking black prisoners' teeth out who had gold teeth, and that in general she knew that these institutions were run by the Ku Klux Klan. And this is from an elected member of the Congress of Florida, a black woman who had done a tour and said that she literally was in fear of her life as she did this tour within the institution because of the treatment and the attitudes of the white guards of the institution when she did her tour. So the racial politics are pretty out in the open, and they're able to exist at such a level because prisons not only hold people on the inside and keep us isolated from the general public, they also keep the general public locked out. So there's no scrutiny, there's no supervision, and there's generally no public accountability for and by those who work within the institution. So it's just a closed culture where all sorts of corruption and abuse is allowed to fester and just to be carried out with pretty much impunity. And the support that is needed on the outside is tremendous. The support that the prisoners have been able to gain over the past several years in response to the work strikes and various attempts to publicize and challenge abusive conditions in the prisons have pretty much got word into the institutions where prison officials had blocked prisoners from becoming aware of what was going on as far as protests going and attempts to challenge and expose abuses. And it bolstered and motivated prisoners who otherwise were afraid to challenge abusive conditions and didn't feel that there was anything that could be accomplished by trying to stand up and oppose the conditions. It kind of motivated a lot of prisoners who weren't otherwise involved to get involved. So the support that can be garnered on the outside and that has been garnered is very important to this type of work and this type of struggle. So it's essential that those who are aware of these struggles and are aware of these conditions give what support they can, not only as allies, but also as comrades.
To anyone behind bars out there who might hear this interview and is sitting on the fence about participation, what can you say about the nationwide prison strike?
That they should not be deterred, they should not be discouraged, they should not just sit on their hands and refuse to get involved. The more of us who get involved, the stronger the outside support and awareness that we are serious about the conditions that we're challenging and the need for change, that they should not allow officials to continue to manipulate us against each other, whether along racial lines, whether you're talking about along the lines of street organizations, that sort of polarization. They also should not allow loved ones to discourage them from participating in the work strike. I know a lot of the loved ones who may hear about the strike, they may advise them to not get involved because of fear of them being transferred a long way away from their loved ones, or they don't want to see them subject to retaliation or being placed on lockdown. But their loved ones should understand that this is a condition, and these are conditions that we live, that they're not living them, and that it's important that we take a stand to change these abuses and not play into officials trying to isolate us and play us one against the other, and to cause people to refuse or fear becoming involved and keep us divided amongst ourselves. We need all possible participants. We need the greatest level of unity possible. And one of the things that I always emphasize to my peers is we outnumber the prison guards, the prison officials around us some 30 to 1 at very least. But they have total power and total control because they always keep us divided, fearful, envious, and not trusting or believing in our own potential, whereas they exercise complete and absolute unity in their actions. If one abuses, the rest of them are going to fall in line and support that abuse. If one of them lies on us and mistreats us, the rest of them are going to conform to that lie, and they're going to carry out that abuse. And that's why they have the control and power that they have, because no matter what the situation, no matter the condition, they always work and stick together. And we need to take that same example and apply it in how we exercise our unity and our level of power amongst ourselves.
Rashid, can you talk about your incarceration, political development, and a bit about the new Afrikan Black Panther Party prison chapter that you helped to co-found? Also, how does it differ from the new Black Panther Party, formerly of the Nation of Islam?
Okay. My imprisonment initially began in 1990. I was incarcerated for a murder that I had no involvement in. In large part, it was conspiratorial on the part of a police officer who I'd had a history of conflicts with. They subject me to a deliberate misidentification and a number of procedural violations during the prosecution of the case that was imputed against me, that went to the actual jurisdiction, the actual power of the court to try, convict, or sentence me for the charges that they were attempting to impute against me. Okay, throughout my imprisonment, particularly the first decade and a half, I spent a large part of my time struggling directly against guard abuses. Their physical abuses I responded to with physical responses. They would abuse physically myself or others around me, and I would respond with physical reactions to their abuses. I went through these struggles, these pretty much back and forth, one-to-one head-up conflicts with guards and their teams of riot guards and cell extraction teams for about the first decade and a half. I became exposed to political thought, particularly the writings of George Jackson around 2001, 2002, when I was housed in an area with another prisoner, a political prisoner, Hanif Shabazz Bey from the Virgin Islands. He turned me on to a lot of different political writings and different political organizations that were involved in the system in America, the various revolutionary nationalist struggles that had taken place throughout the world since the 1940s and 50s. I began to do extensive studies into various aspects and levels of progressive as well as revolutionary history and politics, various theories, etc. And as I studied more, I came to understand the inherent dysfunctional nature of the capitalist imperialist system that America is at the center of. And I understood or came to understand that the oppression that I was struggling against was much bigger than head-to-head clashes with individual guards, that it was a largely an invalid system that pitted a small group of powerful, wealthy people against the masses of working-class people and poor people throughout the world, and that they lived at the expense of these people. And to change conditions required a struggle that mobilized the oppressed to bring about fundamental change at various levels of society. And I grew from a person inclined to react on a more individual level to one who recognized or saw the bigger picture and was more inclined to organize people and to contribute what I could with my resources and the understanding that I was developed to build in something bigger that was more addressed more to the fundamental problems of the overall system. So in that, my clashes with individual guards lessened. I was also involved in litigation and studying and understanding the political system and legal system. I became less inclined to, as I said, individualizing my struggle against the system. So in doing that, I began to reach out more to people on the outside who were involved in political organizations, trying to pull people who were in positions of influence politically, people who were willing to mobilize groups of people in support of prisoners and the conditions that we lived under, to challenge those conditions, to educate prisoners, and to try to consolidate a base of support on the outside to the inside. In doing this, I was able to understand some of the weaker points of the system. I understood where it was most effective to attack the power structure, and I understood or came to understand that one of the most vulnerable places that you can direct your attack at the system is by exposing its corruption to the masses, because the masses are the source of their power. That no people can be ruled over by an oppressor or any power unless they give their consent at some level to that ruling. And once they become aware of the illegitimacy and the corruption of the system, and they refuse to acknowledge or concede the legitimacy of that system, then they can typically overnight overthrow that system. And this is why the power structure expends such a massive amount of resources and propaganda to try to influence and keep the masses brainwashed and believing that they're moralistic and they're honest and they're well-meaning and their intentions are oriented to the best interests of the masses, because they realize without some level of acknowledgement and consent, the masses of people could not be ruled over, would not accept their authority. And as you observed during the Arab Spring, during 2011, once the masses of people refuse to accept the power that rules over them, they can send that power into exile and flight overnight. And the powers that be understand this. So I understood that by exposing the corruption, the illegitimacy of those in power and the lies that they sustain themselves with, this is one means of undermining the false power and the false credibility and sense of legitimacy that these people try to portray themselves as the basis of them exercising their authority over others. And it has proven most effective, particularly in my writings about abuses going on inside of the prisons, my writings exposing the corruptions and the illegitimacies of the power structure and the economic system. To the extent that people have been receptive to my writings, I have seen a corresponding reaction by those in power, which, as I pointed out earlier, has resulted in me facing a much higher level of reprisal and attempts to isolate me now. Very different response from when I was just in my head-to-head clashes with, guards at a very low-ranking level. When I started to expose the system, they started to trying to isolate me, to trying to stop me from communicating with people on the outside, to shutting down my lines of communication, to transferring me from state to state and deliberately sending me to states where the conditions were known to be the most abusive in the country, particularly Texas and Florida, and trying to put me in the positions where I would end up in violent clashes with other prisoners, that sort of thing. But anyway, as I became more politically aware, I saw the need for a political organization to represent those who do not have political representation and to operate, to educate and organize the masses on a more revolutionary and fundamental level of understanding the political economic system, how to challenge and ultimately overthrow that oppressive system in the interest of the working class and the poor and oppressed people. So we co-founded the new Afrikan Black Panther Party prison chapter, initially as an autonomous chapter of the new Black Panther Party, being aware that the new Black Panther Party, which started in 2000, was not practicing the politics and they were not living up to the principles and the program of the original Black Panther Party, but had pretty much wrapped up the politics, the racial politics of the Nation Islam in an artificial garb of Black Pantherism. And our agenda was to try to take that organization into the politics and the revolutionary ideology of the original Black Panther Party, and to change their reverse racism and to put them more onto the path of revolutionary politics of the original party. Ultimately, we realized that it was futile trying to do this, and that they were not interested in changing their political orientation or to, maintaining or carrying forward the agenda of the original Panther Party. So we ultimately split from the new Black Panther Party. We changed our name to the new Afrikan Black Panther Party prison chapter. And from there, we have maintained the political line of the original Black Panther Party, but we have been very focused on not repeating the mistakes of the original party, but building on the correct contributions that the party made to the struggle of the 60s and 70s, and trying to carry forward what they were able to accomplish during their more revolutionary stages, which was from 1966 to 1971, and to, again, not repeat the errors that they made, and to learn from the mistakes that they made, and from what we understand now to be a very vicious campaign carried out against them by the U.S. government, and the inclination of the government to attack any organization that seeks to open the eyes of the masses of people. And we have ourselves been subjected to the same sorts of attacks and attempts to undermine. We've been stigmatized as black separatists and domestic terrorists and all, when actually we have done nothing, and we have not been cited for doing anything except publicizing the corruption of the law enforcement establishment and the abuses inside of U.S. prisons. And they have identified this as being the behavior that they disliked, that they felt qualified us as threats to the security of the country. And I was personally profiled in a 2009 threat assessment report as a domestic terrorist because of my involvement in publicizing abuses in American prisons. And they're saying that I proved to have exercised a good level of influence over people in society and turning them against the law enforcement system because of my writings, which is pretty absurd. But this has been the thrust of what we are trying to organize and some of the work that we've done. And the response has been, as I said, repression, isolation, attempts to attack us, subjecting the various leading members of our organization to various levels of reprisal, being thrown in solitary, subjected to all sorts of physical abuses and, other attempts to try to dissuade and deter us from the work that we're trying to do.
The new Afrikan Black Panther Party has a focus on organizing among folks of African descent. In your view, how can folks in other groups, like white folks, act as comrades, as you say, in the struggle against white supremacy?
All right. Within our party, we founded in 2006 what's called the White Panther Organization, and subsequent to that, the Brown Panther Organizing Committee, as arms of our party. We are the first Panther organization that have actually brought white comrades and brown comrades into our party. So we have brown and white Panthers in our party, and the function of them is to take the line of the new Afrikan Black Panther Party into the white communities to struggle against the racism in the white communities. The brown Panthers take the same line into the brown communities. And the thing is to bring all of these different sectors of society, both domestic and abroad, into a consolidated, united front that will unify us in a single struggle against the imperialist system, particularly focused on the marginalized people that are called the criminalized or lumpen class. Our work is specifically, again, to take the struggle to the power structure at the most fundamental levels and to build the sort of unity that has been probably the Achilles heel of revolutionary struggles, in undermining their effectiveness, and that has been the polarizing factor of race. And as said, this is our approach, and it has proven quite effective. Initially, when they sent me out of state, they sent me to Oregon, which is one of the few prison systems in America where there is a predominantly white prisoner population. It's probably like 5 or 10% black. And they sent me there after they had profiled me as a black separatist. And when I got to Oregon, they spread amongst the large number of Aryan gangs up there that I was a Black Panther, and which they portrayed as some sort of black variation of the Ku Klux Klan, portraying us as anti-white and wanting to make race war against white people and this sort of thing. And they were trying to create a violent conflict between me and the white groups up there, which was obviously the point of them sending me to that state. But in effect, because of the politics of our party and the orientation of the line of our White Panther organization, I was able to politicize the white groups up there. They had like 13 different Aryan gangs up there in the prison system. I ended up politicking with them. They immediately released me into the population, which was another indication of what they intended to try to see happen. But instead of me ending up in a war with them, I ended up politicking with them, exposing them to the history of racism, how racism was manipulated and created in the late 1600s, and how it had been used and has been used as the most effective polarizing factor in society to manipulate oppressed people against each other. And I won a large sector of them over, and when I started to prove effective at not engaging them in violence, but winning them over to more revolutionary political and understanding of racial politics, they immediately threw me into solitary, got me out of population, and started to impose a different regimen of abuse and oppression against me, and ultimately kicked me out of the state, sent me to Texas, when I was able to influence the white Aryan gangs there to get involved with the national prison hunger strike that was taking place in 2013, where 30,000 prisoners got involved when Oregon joined them in that hunger strike. So the line of our party with respect to racial politics is specifically to organize white comrades to take the politics of our party, unifying politics into the white community, to struggle against the polarizing culture in, white culture and white society in America, and to try to bring us all together in a common united front.
Can you talk about your views on feminism in the revolutionary struggle for a new society?
All right, I should make a distinction between our line on the gender issue and the question of the struggle against paternalism and male domination. We are not feminists. We are about revolutionary women's liberation. Feminism seems to be the equal opposite of chauvinism, no male chauvinism. The line in feminism largely has been represented by the bourgeois sector of the women's movement. The upper middle class, the upper class, has always dominated the voice of the feminist movement. So we find it to be largely not a movement that really is about advancing the cause of women at all levels of oppression, but the interest of bourgeois and upper and middle class women to gain an equal foothold with the bourgeois males in dominating society in general. So our struggle is for gender equality, not to raise the interest of upper class women at the exclusion of the lower class and oppressed women. Our struggle is to see working class women, poor women have all of their rights respected and to be given an equal stage of power and an equal stage of respect throughout society at all stages. So I would make the distinction between what is known or generally represented as feminism with what we call revolutionary women's liberation. But we are allied, of course, to the women's movement, those women who identify and those other people who may reject the concept of gender, etc., who identify with the feminist struggle, but from the standpoint of working class women or working class non-gender people or working class LGBTQ people. And we stand on an equal footing with them and seek to have all forms of oppression of women, all forms of oppression of non-gendered people, all forms of oppression of LGBTQ people overthrown, and all people to have an equal share in power and an equal interest in having their rights and their desires, so long as they're not imposing and oppressing other people, respected.
Are there any final statements you'd like to make before we get cut off?
Well, I would like to state that I appreciate this opportunity to speak to the listening audience of this program, and I really hope that much can be achieved through the struggles that are gaining ground and momentum now, and that there will be a growing link between those on the outside and the prisoner movement, and that this will help advance the cause of the oppressed against this oppressive system.
Thank you so much for making this conversation happen, and solidarity.
I wish it could be everybody's got a girl but me. I wish it could be everybody's got a girl but me.
Yo, in this spitting crap, my scribble pad is iller than the Iliad. You silly cats can't even think to bring a gat or dissing raps to the first letter, followed by the 23rd, brought to this earth to make a statement through any words. This is the instrument of your liberation. Toussaint Louverture freed all the Haitians. Black people are still slaves, man, it's so blatant, so I'm starting to revolt. I'm sick and tired of waiting, placing myself in a room full of greatness. All praise to Allah, cause he blessed me with the patience to wait, right, and pick the best time to strike, inspire a fight, as well as enlightening minds. I was born where the dawn finds the sunshine, and raised in a blaze of violence and gun crime. Jeddah and London, I've gone to bed in the dungeons, cause I fight back when feds hit my head with their truncheons. But my blood's from East Africa, Eritrea. Training since birth to be a devil slayer, so I walk with a crossbow and pray that I cross foes. And then I hit the stage and I rock shows. And when I spit, it's like pepper and lava, put in a pot, mix it a bit of the sun and cooked in a wok, and added to the burning that you get when you're shot. What I'm saying is I'm basically hot, never raving. I'm more likely to be reading and finding a way to kill my inner demons. Cause I can't sleep, but I'm always energized. Listen to this and tell me you're not mesmerized. They say the people are too stupid to hear the sounds. I say shut your mouth and let them hear it now. Shut your mouth and let them hear it now. Keep it shut and let them hear it now. They say the people are too stupid to hear the sounds. I say shut your mouth and let them hear it now. Shut your mouth and let them hear it now. Keep it shut and let them hear it now. Da, 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 da. I'm a problem, yes I am a problem. Da, 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 da. Rich people go out and rob them. Da, 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 da. I'm a problem, yes I am a problem. Da, 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 da. Rich people go out and rob them.
Wish I had my girl.
When prisoners' lives are under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back! 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 We love you! We see you! We love you! We see you! We love you! We see you! We love you!
So we're at High TI. We're doing a noise demo. There are about 25 people here. The guards have come out to look at us, to say hello, and on the other side of the fence, the prisoners have made banners, and we're all so excited about this strike. We're so excited that we're all here and making all this noise.
Hello everyone, this is an audio postcard addressed to every prisoner, but especially to those who are participating in the August 21st prison strike. We made this to let you know that we are out here for you, so you can feel strengthened, seen, and know that you are not alone in your struggle for freedom and better conditions. The voices and sounds in this recording are just a small sample of the nationwide community of support. And while it may be hard to feel connected to the outside struggles, we made this to try to illustrate how important you are to us. You just heard sounds and an interview from a demonstration at Hyde Correctional in North Carolina. The remainder of this audio postcard is full of recordings from strike supporters and prison abolitionists, with messages of solidarity and a few more recordings of the demonstrations at Hyde. Till every cage is empty.
All mental health prisoners who have been on lockup for longer than 30 days should be released immediately! Annihilate all forms of long-term solitary confinement for the whole prison commune here in North Carolina! Abolish the mandatory minimum 85% act for the whole prison commune of North Carolina! Human shall be sentenced to death by incarceration or serve any sentence without the possibility of parole. Re-establish the opportunity of parole for the whole North Carolina prison commune. Specify the structure of the SRG policy and the requirements to profile one as SRG. Annihilate the $10 fee for infractions. Restore educational and rehabilitation programs. And fight back!
We will not take this any longer.
Hey, just wanted to let those listening know that a caravan of about 6 cars full of people drove to Hyde Correctional Institution in eastern North Carolina yesterday, the day before the nationwide prisoner strike, to have a noise demo. We got there and it was incredible. There was like 200 or more prisoners out in the yard, and they had hung banners with out of sheets, and some of them, or one said parole, the other was just like listing their demands. I had never been to or heard of any sort of demo where prisoners make their own banners and where we get to see each other so clearly. And we got to wave back and forth at them. We brought drums and we're screaming and chanting through a megaphone. A prisoner called after we left and said that many of them had tears welling up in their eyes at our show of support. It was amazing to feel like we could connect across that fence.
Hello, everybody who's listening to this. I'm glad to have reached you if you're on the inside or out, specifically if you're inside. This is coming from North Carolina. I am a former political defendant in the inauguration so-called riots. I'm reaching out today to show solidarity with y'all, and I'm really proud of everyone keeping everything up with the strike. And much love, and hope to see you soon. Cheers.
Sending a message to all those organizing inside. For all of our movements of liberation, we must start in opposition to the most violent system of control, the prison industrial complex and the carceral state. Stolen people held on stolen land. We on the outside follow your lead as you're on the front lines of the experiments of abusive power, the discipline of race, class, sexuality, and gender, where these forms of control get magnified. We will not allow your work to go unseen. We will not allow prisons and punishment to be invisibilized. We believe in the idea of a convict race beyond the categories black and white that the system of white supremacy needs to maintain control. The convict race includes all the people swept up by the criminal injustice system and touched by its terror. Your work inside, under conditions of direct repression, shows us that liberation is possible. All the work we do on the outside is also aimed to get you free, to support your own efforts to resist their control, and to construct a world free of cages, where people and communities are accountable for themselves and take care of each other. You are part of a powerful history of resistance, of people standing up for their dignity even when it seems impossible. Always remember, ye are many, they are few.
Hey there, just sending love from out west, Colorado. Everywhere I look and see, people got flyers up and stuff on all their social medias about the prison strike, and just want to let you know folks out here are rallying for you, thinking of you, holding you in our hearts, and we'll keep fighting for you until all the walls fall. Keep up the good work in there.
Hey y'all, just sending so much love from the outside. Wanted to tell y'all a story about some stuff we heard about happening in Chapel Hill, North Carolina yesterday. Some folks approached the Silent Sam statue, which is a memorial to former students of UNC Chapel Hill that fought on the Confederate side and were killed. And it was erected in 1913 by the Daughters of the Confederacy, basically as an effort to promote racial segregation, and it's definitely an extension of slave society that has now become a prison society, as y'all on the inside have geniusly articulated to all of us out here. And we just want y'all to know that multiple arrest attempts were made. People were promptly de-arrested, and then after some marching and some covering the statue with some banners, eventually people just took it upon themselves to tear that thing down. And one of the banners actually read, in the march, support the prison strike 2018. So we want to let y'all know that everybody was thinking of you during that as well. And when I woke up this morning and checked Twitter, all I saw was, if I wasn't seeing pictures of Silent Sam coming down, I was seeing people promote the prison strike. And everyone's gunning for y'all real hard. We're all about it. Good luck in there. Stay strong. Word.
Hey y'all, I just wanted to say, the prisons that they're holding you in, this ass world that made all of these prisons, and we're gonna open them all up one day. We love you, we see you, and we got your backs during this strike.
This is to all of the friends, the family, strangers, and comrades on the inside. Shout out to every one of you for surviving and carrying on. It could be any of us out here in your shoes, and some of us have already been there, and a lot of us will be there someday down the road. And that's why we must continue to fiercely support one another and hold compassion even when it feels impossible. The state locks us away and expects us to be lost or forgotten, but what they don't understand is that our passion for life is stronger than their desire for power and control. A dear friend of mine who has been incarcerated for over 12 years just got word that he lost someone very dear to him. Emily was a sweet and courageous beagle who was full of life, and a few weeks ago she stopped eating. And about a week after that, she decided that it was time to go, and so she left. Oscar called me crying. I couldn't even understand what he was saying until I pieced together that Emily had died, and he was unable to hold her and tell her that it was okay and that she was safe. He couldn't even forgive her for leaving. He was robbed of the opportunity to grieve in peace and to mourn this immense loss. His heart is broken, and my heart is broken, and we all know this story too well because we are all affected by these cages. I say this to affirm and to remind that even on the outside, we share your pain and we bear witness to your struggles. They come in many forms and they look really different for everyone that's affected, but they always strike just as deep. We are here, we see you, we're paying attention, and even if someone tries to convince you that we're not, don't listen to them. This is permission to believe that we are still here, and that as long as you're in there, we're going to be out here. Please take care of one another, support who you're with, because together we're stronger inside and outside these walls. We know who the real enemy is, and we have to fight for our freedom. Sending all of my love and some of my rage. Signing off.
To all the people who are engaged in the strike and are involved in striking against complete injustice from our prison system, I want to say that you are not forgotten, you are not alone, and there are a lot of people on the outside who love you and know about your struggle and are standing with you. So stay strong and keep your head up.
I'd like to share a few words to the people considering participating in the hunger strikes, fasts, teach-ins, and work stoppages starting August 21st. Please be aware that there are a growing number of people on the other side of the bars from you that are waking up to the reality of life in the so-called United States. Waking up to the understanding that the constructs that are supposedly keeping us safe and bringing us together, in fact, act the opposite way for the majority of people living here. Waking up to the destructive, systematic nature of settler colonial anti-black white supremacy and its capitalist implements, its ever-evolving and vile co-optation of our resistance and our care, the attacks on queer and feminized bodies and identities. People are awakening to the sham system that we've been born into and sold day in and day out. Its false solutions, the divisions it imposes, the endless toil and the threat of imprisonment or death at the slightest misstep, especially if your skin is of a darker hue. Conversations are happening at dinner tables, in break rooms, cafeterias, on the bus, and the hallways all around this land, where the fundamentals of the governing structure and the values that it feeds us are being shaken to the core. It's a slow movement of people taking some of their power back and finding comrades in the streets, but it is growing. Those of you who have decided to organize, to educate, to resist on your own terms behind those walls are heroes. We know that by participating, you face harsh punishment, lockdowns, even more limits to your visitations, communication, calories, and exercise. But nothing great could be achieved without effort. And those of us out here are trying to be out here for you in there. From those of us in the bigger prison to you in the smaller cages, know that we hold you in our hearts. Each year, our power grows. Solidarity.
Hey y'all, sending love from Virginia. Just wanted to let you know you're an inspiration. Folks out here are keeping an eye on you and rooting for you. I think what you guys are doing is really brave and strong and awesome, and good luck. Take care of yourselves and each other, and yeah, we love you. Stay strong.
And one more note, you keep doing what you gotta do, and we'll keep doing our work. So working together, we're gonna get you out of there. We want you back. So just keep listening, keep fighting, keep doing what's right, and we'll see you soon.
And next up, please stay tuned for some statements of support brought to you by people incarcerated in so-called Canada.
Hello, I'm a inmate serving life in a Canadian penitentiary. We heard about your strike, and we wish you well, and you have all our support and our hopes and our prayers, and we hope things improve for you. Good luck.
August 21st, 2018. To whom it may concern. We are a group made up of individuals from diverse backgrounds, including volunteers, former inmates, and currently incarcerated inmates. Many of our members are inmates serving life sentences. Several of our group members have been incarcerated for more than a quarter century, and 2 have been incarcerated for more than 40 years each. We have accumulated over 300 years of incarceration in Canadian penitentiaries. Recently, we read an article about the call of a national prisoner strike in America. While our countries may not be the same, and the names of the draconian laws and policies are different, the results are the same. The prison industrial complex exists to make money off and fund the needless suffering of human beings. While conditions in most Canadian prisons seems to be, if not better, shall we say, different than in America, we have much in common. We too are over-incarcerated, overcrowded, overworked, underpaid, underfed, undereducated. We too suffer on delays of parole hearings. We too are separated from our loved ones. We too suffer poor health care. In Canada, a country with free universal health care, by the way, and we are too tired of being subjected to the abuses of careless and masochistic staff. Up until a few years ago, our system was much better than it is now. Then we had our own Donald Trump movement. Ours was not a former reality TV star. Ours was a far-right-wing religious nutcase named Stephen Harper. He made sweeping prison reforms, such as cutting inmate pay in half, cutting most rehabilitation programs, and cutting many other services, especially those designed for lifers. He even cut most of the chaplaincy staff. All in all, Trump-like Stephen Harper introduced a huge piece of legislation he named Safer Streets and Communities. Everyone else commonly referred to as the Omnibus Crime Bill. In this lovely bit of legislation, he rolled the Canadian prison system back at least 50 years. He had plans to go even further. He wanted to revoke our rights to vote. Yes, convicted felons in Canada can still vote, even while incarcerated, even lifer. But Harper wanted to take that right away. Thankfully, he was defeated before he could implement those particular heinous policies. The current government made a lot of promises for change, but we have actually done very little. I guess we have to be thankful that at least they haven't made things any worse. In short, yes, this is a rather long-winded way to say something. In short, but here it goes. We, the inmates in Canadian prisons, offer you our support, our solidarity, and our prayers. We hope that your demands will be met and that your conditions will improve. No human beings should be kept in cages and treated worse than animals. The practice of making money from the suffering of other human beings, prisoners, must stop. All incarcerated detained men and women are entitled to respect, dignity, humane treatment, proper health care, and access to rehabilitation programs and release from prison.
To find past episodes of The Final Straw, you can subscribe to us in your favorite podcatching device or visit the website thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org for 8 years of free audio. If you'd like to hear us on your local radio airwaves, contact your community radio station and tell them to check out the radio tab on our website. Or you can reach us via thefinalstrawradio@riseup.net and we'll try to help in the process. We are up on the most obnoxious social media platforms and can easily be shared after we air. If you appreciate this podcast and the voices that we bring to you each and every week, at least once a week, please consider a one-time or recurring donation via PayPal or LiberaPay. You can also subscribe to recurring donations for us at patreon.com/TFSR and get some pretty sweet swag. If you want one of the shirts or mixtapes or sticker and button packs that we offer to Patreon customers but can't afford a monthly donation, drop us an email and we'll try to work something out. You can find out more about ways to donate to The Final Straw Radio at thefinalstrawradio.noblogs.org/donate.